So so far today we have taken refuges, we have gone for precepts. We have gone for refuge and we have taken precepts. Thank you. We have done some meditation, and we've learned about the first 5 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? Yes, okay. What are those 5 factors again? Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for reminding me. Okay, then, so what I'd like to do for this session is talk about the remaining 3 factors, okay? But before we go on and do that, I just want to remind you that one of the themes for today, how do you get enlightened, okay? And I've reminded you about how many of these things you already have. You already have your right view from listening to Dhamma talks. Yay, everybody. Okay, very good. Right, congratulations on developing right view. We have our right intention because we're practicing renunciation coming here. Very good. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Excellent. So good. Practicing right speech, right? Because we're not doing any wrong speech while we're here, are we? No. No gossiping? No? Okay, very good. Sadhu, sadhu. Right speech. Okay, we're doing right action. We're not killing, harming, anything like that? No? Hey, very good. Right action. And right livelihood. Well, no, you're not doing any right livelihood, I guess. But normally, hopefully, you're doing right livelihood. So give yourself a round of applause for that. Okay, very good. Congratulations. So that's pretty good. So let's say you were to just go home right now and just sleep the rest of the day, okay? You could go home and you say to yourself, I've done 5 out of 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path today. That's not too bad, okay? It's not too bad, all things considered. You know, a lot of people will go through their whole life and they'll never do that much practice of the Noble Eightfold Path. So 5 out of 8, you're doing great, okay? But you know what I think? I think we can do even better. I reckon we can go for 6, we can go for 7, heck, we can even go for 8. We'll see how we go. So let's talk about the final 3 factors. And so for this part of the session, we'll talk about these final 3 factors: right effort, right mindfulness, right samadhi, and we will do a bit more meditation and then have some Q&A in a few minutes' time. Oh, I was going to ask for the organisers, are we going to do Q&A just by speaking, or are we going to put people write letters, write the Q&A?
I think write will be easier.
But writing questions is easier. Have people been doing that?
Where's this Jenny? She said she'll put a box. Is this Jenny?
We should have done that before the break,
the box
right?
Is not out yet. Yeah.
Box is not out. We should have done that before the break, so people don't have too much time now. Look, we'll try to do that now, but we'll maybe have a bit of a mix and see how we go with the questions. All right. So right effort. Right effort. Let go what is unwholesome, develop what is wholesome. Right effort. Sama vayama, sama virya, sama padana, different words that are used for it. So in one way, the practice of right effort has been with us since the beginning. And ever since we went for the 3 refuges, right? Buddhang saranang gacchami, I go. That means that you have to make that effort, yeah, to go for refuge. And this is one of the things that characterizes Buddhism as a religious path and as a path of freedom, right? It's up to us to make that effort, right? It's a bit dicey, right? Could be one or the other, or both. Probably both. But I mean, reasonably speaking, most Christians would say, look, it has to be both, right? You have to live a good life and be a good person, and when you do that, then you'll be saved. So they're kind of both okay, fine. But from a Buddhist point of view, the Buddha said he couldn't save you. Okay? Are we clear about that? Half of the people get up and walk out. That's not what I was looking for. I was looking for someone to save me. No one can save you except yourself. Now that doesn't mean that we can't help each other, right? That's an extreme view, right? Of course we can help each other. We can be kalyana mitta, good friends for each other. And we do that through the Buddhist Fellowship. We do that through being good friends to our family, to our neighbours, to our colleagues, right? And we can help and support, encourage, lift each other up as much as possible. So this is good, right? This is really important. It's an essential part of the path. Don't neglect it. I mentioned a little bit earlier how our programmers in Poland have been asking, like, how do I start meditation? Actually, the answer that I gave them is, if you want to start meditation, find some people. Number one, like, you can find meditation apps, you can find talks on YouTube, you can read books. That stuff's easy, right? But you need people. You need a meditation group in your local town, your local place, people you can meet, people you can get to know. You need a spiritual community. It's so important. And it's really precious what you have here with the Buddhist Fellowship, founded on that very principle, right? That's the idea of fellowship. This is kalyana mitta. That's precisely why the BF exists. Such an important thing. Just remember, like, as spiritual practitioners, we always should be there for each other. Always looking out for each other. Always be ready to help. Always be ready to give some support, to give some companionship, to just be there for each other. And one of the, like, I'll tell you a story that I heard from the beginnings of the Buddhist Society in WA, where I was in Brahmins. And he said that when they first started out there, they started out very small, and they would just go and they'd meditate in the little house that they had, and people would come along and they'd have a meditation group, they'd finish the meditation and everyone would go home. But then when they saw that happening for a while, then they thought, hang on, let's change this up a bit. When we finish the meditation, we'll offer people a cup of tea. And that's how the Buddhist Society got going. That's literally the difference. We're going to come there, do some meditation, and then have a cup of tea, have a chat. And that's where all of those great things the Buddhist Society's been able to accomplish, because they had a cup of tea there. That's the power of fellowship, getting to know each other, meeting like-minded people. Look, out there in the world, like, we come here in the BF, everybody's got the same, more or less, same kind of values. We come here, we bow together, we chant together, we listen to Dhamma together, we meditate together, and you have that feeling of who we all are together. You go back into the world and it's not like that, right? It's probably like in the place where you live, maybe you're the only practicing Buddhist in that place, or at least maybe on your floor or wherever you are. Same thing maybe at your workplace. Maybe there are other people with similar ideas at your workplace, but maybe not. And so it can get very lonely, that feeling of isolation and so on. And so being able to help and support each other is such an important part of this. It's something also that I just give out just as a suggestion for you, something for each of you to think about how you can contribute to as well. So that maybe through contributing to the BF, that's one way, obviously, and obviously so many great volunteers and so on who are coming here. Oh, by the way, let's give a hand for all the volunteers, everyone at BF. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, very good. Right? So everybody appreciates what they do, right? Because they make it available for everyone to come here. And so that's such a great thing. But also there are other ways that you can contribute, okay? Maybe you hold a meditation group online. Maybe you do it at your workplace. Right? This is something I really encourage people to do as much as you can. Lots of offices would be really open for this, and lots of workplaces if you approach them the right way. I have a friend in Canberra who worked at the Ministry of Defence in Canberra, and he was a meditator, and he wanted to start a meditation group in the Defence Department. And so he had to fill out these forms because they had to hire a room. So they had to fill out these forms and they had to write down like what are the possible dangers of your practice. And he's like, these guys like literally driving tanks around and dropping bombs and stuff. And I have to put down the dangers of meditation. He said, someone might fall off their meditation chair. I don't know. So he started that group and it was so successful. So many people were really into it. In fact, it got so successful, he was invited by his bosses to teach meditation courses. Another example we have in Perth in the tax department. So the tax department invites monks down to teach meditation and so on. They have a very big group. They have like 60-something people there. And, just started out from just one person. So you don't have to be like an expert. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to be anything like that, but just to be a kalyana mitta. Yeah? And you can bring people together, maybe do some meditation, maybe have a Dhamma discussion group, maybe just have a Dhamma fellowship group. Doesn't even have to be about Dhamma, but just invite your Dhamma friends together, go out for lunch or whatever. But just to do something together to build that sense of community. This is something that I've noticed has been so strong in traditional Buddhism. Like if you go to my birthplace in the Dhamma was in northeast Thailand and in the villages in northeast Thailand. And this is what you see, this strength of Buddhism is happening there. And you can see it not just in the generosity of people giving dana on Pindabata, not just in coming to the monastery and practicing, listening to Dhamma, meditating all night. But also you can see it. You can feel it intangibly in the people somehow. And so often the developments and things that happen in the village begin in the monastery kitchen. That's just how it happens. People coming together, do the washing up, right? Offer some chatting. We really need another water tank for the village, or whatever. And they talk about it, so on, get it together, and then it happens. So many times this happens. And so that power of the community to work together and to manifest the Dhamma through helping each other, this is one of the most, I think, important things that we can do as Buddhists. So, all of this is supportive of your right effort. Now, I tell you what, there are people who will leave everything behind and go into a cave in the Himalayas and just meditate by themselves and get enlightened. Yeah? There are. I don't know about you, but I think most meditators at one time in their life probably fantasize about doing something like that. Right? If only I could just leave everything behind, I could just go have a little hut on the beach or a little hut in the forest or the hills and just meditate. It'd be so nice, wouldn't it? Yeah? It would be very nice. I'm speaking as a monk, I've actually done that. I spent a year living in a cave in Ipoh, and I spent a long time living in caves and mountains and things like that in Thailand. And I'm here to tell you it's great. Yeah. And you should totally do that if that's what you want to do. Find the opportunity and make it happen. Yeah, it's fantastic. But also not as straightforward as you might think. There's always things that will happen. One time, many years ago, when I was in Adelaide, and I was teaching a bunch of primary school kids. And just come in. It was a really lovely school, and they immediately had all of these questions. So they've never seen a monk before. I go in there and try to sort of say something meaningful to them, and they were all with these questions. First question, number one: do monks wear underwear? That's number one. Okay. So, and then question number two was: have you ever been eating your food and a toucan took the food from your bowl while you were eating? And I had to say, yes, in fact, that exactly has happened. I used to stay for a while in a place called Dhamma in Thailand, and there they have these birds, like they're called great hornbills, and they literally would come up to the monks' bowls and put their beaks in and take the food out of your bowl while you're eating it. So I had to say, yes, you're right, exactly that happened. And third question they asked was, have you ever been meditating in a cave in the mountains and got attacked by a bear? And now that didn't happen to me, but it did happen to one of my friends, the former nun Tanisara, and she was literally meditating in a cave in the mountains, and a bear came, bit her head, picked her up and started throwing her around. Yes, she's still got the scars on her head. Yeah. So just something to think about, okay? Something to think about if you're ever wanting to go off and meditate in the caves, okay? It seems like a nice idea, but just be careful where you're going to end up. All right. But leaving all of these silly stories behind, well, the main point that I'm just trying to make here is that even though we sometimes have this idea that our path is just going to be, we're just going to meditate and that's it, but the reality is that that's not what our lives are. Right? Our lives are more complicated and multidimensional. And the Noble Eightfold Path is part of all of those different dimensions of our lives. And the people who can really persevere like that, just by solitude and just by practicing by themselves, are very rare. And even in the Sangha, even those who've gone forward, the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, it's rare to find people who will be like that. Most people need a community, and most people need some people around and some support around and so on. So don't neglect that part of your practice, and don't look down on it. Don't think of it as a secondary or lesser part of your practice. It's just as important. This is what makes it possible for us to meditate. So if we're going to put forth effort, we are trying our best to overcome these unwholesome dhammas and these unwholesome qualities. So one of the, we need to make our effort as easy as possible. So you have to do is make your effort as lazy as possible. Okay? Why? Because you're human. Come on. You're going to be you're going to be lazy anyway. So you've got to make it work for you. I don't really mean being lazy. I just mean being discerning and considerate about how you're making effort. Sometimes people will make too much effort and they'll push too hard and they'll think, I'll go away on this retreat and then I'll meditate 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day, something like that, and they'll be kind of really great, and then they're going to come back from a retreat and then they're like, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to keep meditating, and so on, and then of course that doesn't happen, right? And so there's always this kind of sense of like living somewhere else. Like, I'm going to do this so that I can do that, and then do that so that I can do that, and you're never actually really present. So when it comes to right effort, don't worry too much about what you're doing. Right? If you're working, if you're unemployed, if you're working, if you're looking after the home, if you're like a mum or dad, if you're studying, if whatever it is that you're doing, don't worry about it too much, actually. It's okay. Yeah? So we just accept where we are, accept what it is that we're doing, and we make the best of that. This is always the advice that I give to young monks and nuns. If they ask me, they say, where should I go? What's a good place to ordain? What's a good place to train? And the number one advice I always give them is always exactly the same. So wherever you go will be fine, have advantages and disadvantages. But the main thing is to do the best that you can with what you have in the place that you're at. Don't be going to one place and then thinking, I wish I was at the other one. Yeah, and then if you go to the other one, then you'll be thinking, I wish I was back here. Yeah, and then you're never content. Take advantage of what it is to learn from where you are right now. If you're at if you're in a job or whatever situation that you're in, learn from that situation as best you can. I'm not saying just put up with it and just endure whatever suffering or anything. If you need to change your circumstances, change it. But don't be always living in that state of imagining that somehow one day things will become better. Yeah? Life is just life. Today is just as good as any other day. This moment is just as good as any other moment. Right this moment right now, it's pretty good. It's okay, right? It's just a moment. Every single moment that you will ever have in your life is just going to be like this. Sight, sound, smell, taste and touch. And thoughts and stuff. That's it. That's all your life will ever consist of. So it's okay, right? It's pretty good, all things considered. We're pretty lucky to be human beings. So be grateful for those things and practice with what we have. If you have the chance to meditate, then meditate. If you have the chance to study, then study. If you have the chance to be with good friends, then be with good friends. If you have the chance to serve, then serve. And always try to give whatever you've got 100%. Again, this is something that I learnt from living with Ajahn Brahm. And you go see Ajahn Brahm from time to time, and he'll give a talk, or you see him online, and these kinds of things, and you see this kind of public persona that he has. And when I used to stay in his monastery, but I wasn't just in his monastery, I was also his secretary, so I used to work with him all the time. And you just see the kind of attitude that he brings to things all the time. I'll just give kind of a couple of examples of this. So one example was, like when we were staying in Serpentine, in the monastery, when we would leave to go down to the city, you'd always drop by the post office on the way, because you pick up the mail from the post office in Serpentine. And so you'd be in the van, there'd usually be, maybe 2 or 3 monks or something like that, and the driver, and you'd come in and you'd stop at the post office, and every single time, as soon as you stop, Ajahn Brahm would be the first one to leap out of the van and go to the post office and drop off the mail and pick up the mail. And all the other monks would just be sitting there, because no one would keep up with him. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was the case when I was there. So after that happened once or twice, I thought, no, I'm going to beat him. Yes, I'm going to get it. So make sure I get everything ready, my seatbelt ready, the door ready to go. So when the van pulled up, I could jump out of the van and take the mail in, because he was the Ajahn. So, you shouldn't have to be doing those little jobs. So that's a small little service that I could do. Another example that I remember from Ajahn Brahm was when they were doing some work. They were actually building the walking meditation path at the kuti that I was staying in. And I just went along. I wasn't doing the work, but there's a few monks doing the work in Ajahn Brahm. And I just went along to see how the work was going. And there was like 2 or 3 monks there. And I remember it really well, because the monks were talking about formless jhanas. So there's like 3 or 4 monks sitting there talking about formless attainments, and 1 monk laying bricks. Guess who was laying bricks? And also, guess who was more likely to be doing formless jhanas when he went back to his kuti? And I tell you what, it wasn't the ones who was talking about it, that's for sure. So again, that's Ajahn Brahm's personality, right? When he's laying bricks, he's laying bricks 100%. Yeah? And he just gets on with it. And that, to me, gave me this great example of somebody who would just sort of be able to have that sense of focus and that sense of commitment to what he was doing really in the present. So this is all part of right effort. Okay? So if you remember anything from this somewhat rambling discussion of right effort, remember this: never give up. You're okay. There's nothing about you that makes it impossible for you to get enlightened. You're just like a bunch of 5 khandhas. That's it. Sorry to disappoint you, but you are just a bunch of 5 khandhas. And you can get enlightened like any other bunch of 5 khandhas can. And the only way that you can get enlightened is to keep going. One step after another. That's it. There's no other way. And the only way that you can fail to get enlightened is by not taking that step. So by coming here today, by practicing all of these factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, you are getting closer to enlightenment. Yeah? Whether you think so or not. It's just how it works. It's just how conditionality works. You are getting closer to enlightenment. Right? So this is right effort, the fifth factor, sixth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path. Now then, right mindfulness is the seventh factor. Now right mindfulness is this kind of funny thing. Because it's actually like one factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, which would seem to make it 1 out of 8. I don't know. But these days, when people talk about Buddhism, certainly internationally and so on, and often it's mindful this and mindful that and mindful the other, and you'd be mistaken for thinking, oh, well, it's everything, like the whole Buddhist path was mindfulness. And, you know, that nowadays they'll talk about, like, mindful livelihood. So you don't have to, so you just sort of, I don't know, it feels to me often like people, like, take the Eightfold Path, and then you take mindfulness out of the Eightfold Path and say, okay, we'll do mindfulness, and everyone's great. And then you're like, but actually we're missing something. So now we have to do like mindful speech as well. So we'll bring that one back in. And then we have to do like mindful livelihood. So we'll sort of bring that one back in. And then we have to bring right mindful action in there. And so you're sort of gradually bringing all the factors of the Eightfold Path back in there, but now they're all mindfulness. I don't know. It feels good. And now we're kind of reaching this point, actually having a conference on mindfulness when I get back to Sydney. But then it kind of reaches this point where people are saying, but now mindfulness doesn't mean anything. Yeah, that seems to be how it goes. But anyway. So what does mindfulness mean in the suttas? If I was to define mindfulness briefly, I would say mindfulness is the continual experiencing and re-experiencing of whatever it is that you're focusing on, whatever it is that you're aware of. So mindfulness is closely related to memory. It can be used in the sense of memory as in remembering things that were said and done long ago. That's in fact one of the definitions of mindfulness in the suttas. But more commonly in meditation, it's remembering where you are, remembering the present, remembering the meditation that you're doing, right? Remembering to keep on going with what you're doing. Think about when we do mindfulness of breathing. When we do mindfulness of breathing, you continue to be aware of the breath. Yeah? That aspect of continuity is very important in mindfulness. You're bearing the breath in mind, holding the breath in mind. Yeah? So this aspect of sati, or mindfulness, is that continuity of awareness. And of course, as we know, that's what happens is that your mindfulness slips when you're meditating. You're being aware of the breath, and then suddenly you're aware of something else. That's what happens when you lose your mindfulness. So mindfulness of breathing is the continuity of awareness. All right? So this is one of the reasons why when mindfulness is discussed in the suttas, it's always said to be anupassana. Right? So 𝐾𝐼𝐴 is what it says in the Satipatthana Sutta. Anupassana. So passana is to see. Anu means to keep on. Anu means continually seeing. Right? So to keep on observing. So this aspect of continuity is crucial to understanding what mindfulness is. So now let's think about that for a minute. Normally, our awareness is broken up. Okay? We have 6 senses, and awareness is being pulled to one or other sense. You're pulled to the eyes, pulled to the ears, and so on. And then that creates like a fragmentation in our consciousness. Right? We're constantly experiencing different kinds of consciousness. Not even just like the 6 senses is changing, but also even like within those senses is changing. Like when you're seeing, you're seeing different things all the time. And so whenever all that changing is happening, then your mind has to process that. So your mind has to constantly work to make sense out of this world. Now, if you break this down, right? This world that we're living in, you see sights and colours, right? But they're different. Like if I move and look at different parts of the room, the sights I see is all different. Yeah? The actual colours, the light that I'm seeing is different. Now I'm hearing sounds. But the sounds are always changing. Right? Yeah? You can smell, you can taste, right? You can touch. these things also are always changing. And so out of this world, which is constantly changing, we somehow develop this idea of a coherent space in which we live. And when we sit here, we don't think, oh, now I've turned over this side of the room, therefore all those people have disappeared. Hey, you're back again. That's really slick. He just came back just in time for me to turn around. Because we have this idea of this coherent. We see, like if I look at that wall, all I see is the colour of the wall, but I know it's solid, right? And my mind will tell me, oh, that's actually solid. It's not just something that you can walk through. So our mind is constantly working to create this complex, dynamic, ever-changing world which has somehow coherently organised and meaningful. Yeah? And that's really what stress is. So if we stop and think about it, that's actually what stress really means. We're faced with all of this input and all of these things, and we're being pulled in these different directions, and it's so much work to keep doing it. Yeah? And now normally when we're faced with stress, we don't cope with it very well. You take a pill, you take a drink, you take some distraction, you want to watch some telly, whatever you're doing, scroll on social media. You do something that's going to distract you or something, give you that little bit of dopamine hit, right? And this is what the people, especially the designers of social media, have managed to do so successfully. Is they designed it very consciously so that when you see a post, you get a little bit of a dopamine hit, and that little bit is enough to keep you going. This is what they figured out. You don't actually have to enjoy doing it. You just have to have enough of a dopamine hit that it will keep you going to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. It's really creepy and manipulative. Yeah. And to be clear, that's what they say. That's what the people who built it say. And, a lot of the people who built Facebook and built Twitter and things like this, and they now say that's specifically what they were doing. And they say that they certainly wouldn't let their children use these things. And, all of them say this, like Zuckerberg and all of these people say, no, they wouldn't let their kids use these things. Yeah? That's because they're designed to create that dopamine hit. So all of these things are destroying mindfulness. Right? They all destroy your mindfulness. They destroy the coherence of your awareness, of your consciousness. Constantly distracting you, constantly feeding you new information, constantly stimulating emotions and emotional responses in one way or another. And see, the apps and all these things, they don't care about what kind of emotional response you have. In fact, the one they prefer, number one, is hate. Hate is great. Yeah? Hate drives clicks. Yeah? That's what they want. And so if they can stimulate your hate and your anger and your outrage, yeah, that's what they're going to do. And that's why all of them, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all of them, they devolve towards hate, because that's what drives clicks. So mindfulness, right? Mindfulness, we need to have some understanding of how these things work, and we need to be able to use the right effort to pull our mind back and keep our mind stable. Meditation is the application of mindfulness. Now, mindfulness as a quality can and should be developed everywhere. All right? That means to say right view, yeah? When we are listening to Dhamma talks, being mindful, yeah? Keeping your mind in the present, try not to let your mind wander too much. Try to understand what's being said. You're applying mindfulness. Yeah? If you're practicing right intention, then you apply mindfulness. Practicing right speech, you apply right mindfulness. Very important. Yeah? Very important. When you're talking with someone, it's not just the beautiful golden words that spill off your tongue that matter, okay? It's also the other person. And being able to listen to that other person to see how they are, what they want to say. This is part of right speech as well. Right action, right livelihood, all of these things we apply mindfulness through them. But in meditation is where we come most directly to apply mindfulness. Yeah? In fact, in the suttas, when it says the idiom in the suttas, when it says to do meditation, is satingopatapetwa, having established mindfulness. This is the normal way it talks about doing meditation. And so mindfulness itself is the practice of meditation. So I'm going to talk about that in the context of mindfulness of breathing. Now, we did mindfulness of breathing this morning. We're going to do some more in a little while. And I talked about how with mindfulness of breathing, we are mindfully breathing in and mindfully breathing out. Now, when we keep our awareness with the breath, we are starting to integrate and collect our consciousness. And that happens by a variety of means. So one way that it happens is through time. Okay, through time. Time is very important. What's the time? It's 2:45. Okay. Time is very important. I don't think we think enough about time. When we talk in Buddhism a lot about impermanence, but impermanence really is just a way of talking about time. Okay? In Buddhism, we talk a lot about the present moment. Right? Did you know that the Buddha never said the word present moment? Never. Well, for a start, he didn't speak English. But the word in Pali is Paccuppanakana, and he didn't say that either. He didn't say anything that had anything like the idea of the present moment. In fact, he didn't talk about moments at all. Not in the sense that we understand it today, or the sense that as in the Abhidhamma understanding of moments, right? That's interesting, isn't it? I first sort of realised this from the writings of David Kalapahana, who was one of the great Sri Lankan philosophers of the 20th century. And he said that he gave the memorable illustration. He said that when the present moment is like walking on a tightrope. Right? One wrong step. Whereas he said the present is like riding on a camel. Right? It's a bit kind of, you can shuffle backwards and forwards a bit, there's a bit of leeway, it's a bit kind of wobbly, it's not entirely stable, but it's secure enough. So that idea of the present, I think, is also fundamental with the idea of mindfulness. You see, I don't think, like when Abhidhamma people talk about time, they talk about time is like sliced up into moments, like a film strip. So each film strip has one thing. I don't agree with that. I don't want to go into the philosophy of it. But to me, time is more like a wave. Yeah? I mean, look, maybe it's like a quantum theory thing where it depends on how you look at it or whatever. I don't know. But so to me, time is more like a wave that's kind of moving from the past to the future. And if time is like a wave, that means it's a bit broad and it's a bit kind of probabilistic. And you can slide around a little bit inside it and still be more or less in the present. Right? It's a wave. And I also think the shape of that wave changes. And I think that when we meditate, that wave can become broader. So our perception of the present can become more broad. There has been some interesting studies into dreams. Because, of course, you know that in dreams, you can, commonly will experience things that have happened to you recently, right? They will come up in your dreams. But what they found when they did the studies is that things that are going to happen to you in the future occur in dreams about as much as things that happened in the past. Interesting? Yeah? Interesting? So this comes, I think, this idea of a kind of a wave, like maybe like when you're dreaming, then maybe your mind sort of flattens out the wave and it kind of leaks out into the past and future a bit. And so I don't know if the present is this entirely discrete or separate thing. So if we think of the present as being like a wave or something like that, then in a way, it makes it easier in meditation to sort of come just to be in the present, and just to be with that wave as it's moving. Another way of looking at the same thing is that being in the present is natural and being in the past and the future is unnatural. Being in the present is the rest state. Being in the past and the future takes work. To get into the past and the future, we have to use our minds. We have to use language. We have to think about it. We have to push our mind into the future, push our mind into the past. And when we don't do that, we're in the present. This is one of the reasons why the foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of the body. You see, mindfulness of the body is always in the present. Right? If you touch, you're always in the present. This is really handy. If you're in a meeting and it's really frustrating, just touch something. Yeah? Just touch something. Just remind yourself, I'm here. Just touch the table or something like that. I'm here. Yeah? You remind yourself to be in the present. Your touch is always in the present. Sight, sound, smell, taste and touch, always in the present. Only your mind goes into the past and the future. That's why all of our Buddhist meditation is founded on mindfulness of the body. It brings us into the present. The past is a funny thing, isn't it? So many times when we're meditating, we think that, we're plagued by the past. And I talked about a bit about that this morning, about this idea of the idea that we're almost like victims of our past, about the things that have happened to us and these kinds of things. But the funny thing about the past is the past is gone. It's not actually here. And when you see, it's like we feel like the past is like a zombie which has risen from its grave and has come to attack us and to eat our brains. Right? That's in meditation. And it's like the past is coming to get us, and all of our regrets, right? All of the things we should have done, all the things we left undone. All of those. Have you ever had that experience where you just remember something really embarrassing that happened in primary school? And then suddenly, 40 years of distance just vanishes and you just feel that embarrassment just like it was yesterday. Yeah? And this is how the past works. But the past isn't a zombie. There's no such thing as zombies. Right? They're not coming up to get you. What's happening? You know what's really happening? Is that you wait until the middle of the night when everything is dark and still and everybody is asleep. And then you go to your garage, you pick up a shovel and you go to the local graveyard and you dig up a grave and you unopen the coffin and you pull out the bones. And you hold the bones of the past in your hand and you start hitting yourself over the head with the bones and say, oh no, the past is coming to me, the past is coming to me. So stop grave robbing, okay? Leave the past alone. It's okay, right? It's fine, yeah? We know that there is suffering there. That's why we're practicing, because we don't want to experience that suffering in the future. So don't let the past determine us. So mindfulness coheres our mind by unifying it in time. That unified flow. We also have that unification in consciousness, right? So when we're meditating, we're only aware of consciousness through one or two doors usually. So typically, if we're doing breath meditation, we will be not seeing, smelling, tasting, touching. Sorry, not seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. Right, hang on, what are the senses? Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, right? And then touching. Okay, so first of all, it's just touching because you're feeling the air coming through your nose. So you have the touch. And as you go deeper into meditation, it becomes more of like a mind awareness, like a mind consciousness. And in deep meditation, it's just mind consciousness. So you're simplifying the kind of consciousness that's happening. You're simplifying everything in time. Yeah? And you're not just simplifying the fact that it's mind consciousness. You're simplifying the kinds of things that are happening in mind consciousness. So when we're sitting and meditating, where mind might be thinking about this and that, or going off here and there, or something like that. And we're thinking that mind is like so random and so moving around and all of those things. But your mind is actually settling down, even though you don't really notice it. When you meditate and then you feel, my mind is all over the place, my mind is doing this, my mind is that, and you feel that that's a problem in your meditation. Okay? This is the wrong way to look at it. Right? Your mind was already doing all of those things, much worse, but you never even saw it. You didn't even know. What's actually happening is not that your mind is starting to run around the place. What's happening is that you are starting to be aware of it. You're starting to realize, this is what my mind is like. So what you're experiencing is not distraction. What you're experiencing is wisdom. And it's wisdom that is starting to know this is how my mind is. And that's the beginning of being able to undo it. Sometimes it can feel like it's just never ending. Like you just can't stop it. Right? But that would be wrong with you. Every thought that you have is just a condition. It has a certain amount of energy, a certain amount pushing it behind it, and then it will last for a while, and then it will come to an end. That's it. That's all these thoughts are. Don't be intimidated by them. Right? Those thoughts and all of those forces in your mind that are running around doing all of these things, they are Mara. Mara is scared. Mara wants to convince you this isn't going to work, so you should give up. But we know what we say to Mara, don't we? I know you, Mara. You're Mara, the evil one. Get out of here. If you continue your practice, then you will succeed. It's just a matter of time. So mindfulness is knitting our consciousness together, knitting the different kinds of consciousness together, knitting the mind together in time. It's creating a wholeness and a coherence out of our mind. And in that wholeness and that coherence, then the mind will abandon what we call the 5 hindrances. And the 5 hindrances are, what are they again? Sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse. The last one's doubt. Is that right? You sure? Okay, fair enough. Okay, so these are the 5 hindrances. As we're meditating, we're gradually letting go of all of these hindrances. In fact, we are starting to mitigate these throughout the whole practice of the Eightfold Path. But especially in meditation, then these things are starting to fade away. And let me just talk about these a little bit. So, first of all, sense desire, any kind of desire for pleasure through the senses. You see, the thing with this is that your mind is a pleasure-seeking device. That's what minds are. Minds want to experience pleasure, and they're just going to go and do that with devastating results, right? How you overcome that, if you want to overcome that, see, a lot of kind of religious and spiritual people think they'll overcome that by denying the mind, right? Denying yourself of pleasure and so on. And typically, that doesn't work all that well, because it's not how your mind is. So the Buddha was much more psychologically canny than that. He said, I've got a better kind of pleasure for you. Now you're talking, right? He said that other pleasure, the thing that you thought was going to make you happy, that's rubbish. Okay? And the pleasure you can get from meditation is so much better. Yeah? And the peace that you can get in meditation, the feeling of pleasure, the rapture, the uplift is such a beautiful experience. And it is this kind of pleasure that is entirely wholesome. It doesn't have any bad side effects to it. And the further you go and the more you experience, the better it is. This is the opposite of sensual pleasure. Sensual pleasure is typically the first bite of ice cream is great, second bite's pretty good, third bite, by the fourth bite, your mind's wandering off anyway. Yeah? Very rapidly they fade away. Whereas the pleasure of meditation keeps on getting better. It's one of the qualities of Niramisa Sukha, spiritual happiness. So to overcome our distraction into the senses, we learn to experience the pleasure through meditation. And that's something which you can train yourself. Alright? But through perception, through your attitude, through the way you're approaching meditation. So if your meditation is coming with too much pushing from behind, then it will tend to be a bit of a grind. Right? So your meditation so there needs to be some pushing, right? That's your right effort. I'm not saying that you don't need to put effort. I'm not saying you don't need to push in the meditation or anything like that. Of course you do. I'm just saying that there are limits to how effective that's going to be. And it need to be drawn by that experience of pleasure in meditation. So that's something that you all need to learn to do. Okay? Right? This is the bad news. You're all going to have to learn how to experience deep pleasure and happiness in meditation. Sorry, but that's just it. You're just going to have to. Okay? And you can do that through breath meditation. You can do it through metta meditation. Maybe you find another meditation that's going to be more suitable for you. That's okay. It doesn't matter what kind of meditation. It doesn't matter how you do this. But through the meditation, you find that sense of bliss and that sense of happiness. And that's what's going to draw your mind inward to peace and to contentment. Now, the flip side, of course, of sensual desires is ill will. And this, of course, is one of the huge problems, right? That sensual pleasures are not just impermanent and so on, but also they regularly get you into conflict. And, like the study of economics and things is often more or less a study of how to kind of resolve these conflicts, because you have limited resources, you have one piece of land and many people want that piece of land, and that's where you get conflict coming up. And this happens all the time. So ill will comes as the flip side of desire. Jealousy, right? Resentment, yeah? So many bad things come from this. So when we're practicing meditation, again, you see, we can look at anger and hate in the kind of the direct forms. Like someone does something bad to you, you feel angry with them, and you want to do something back to them again, and so on. But it's kind of interesting as I'm speaking for myself, and like as you get older and as you're sort of practicing the Dhamma more. And you look at the kinds of things that people get angry about and things that people conflict about, and you're like, why? Why would you do that? And there's so much, it seems to me, there's so much insecurity in people. People get so defensive about things. And you're just kind of lashing out because of some perceived slight or some, you think someone said something impolite to you or something like that, and then you get really upset and kind of lash out and so on. There's so much insecurity. I don't know if that seems to you to be the case, but it seems to me to be the case. If you're confident and you're happy inside yourself, you're not going to get angry with other people. I mean, maybe you might still a bit now and then, but not so much. Not everything is about you all the time. And if people say horrid and mean things, sad actually. You should actually feel pity for them. Like, why are you like this? Imagine going that whole life like that. It's really sad to think about. Anyway, So, ill will. Next one, soften torpor. How are we going today? We're getting sleepy? Yes? All right, well, look, we'll have a bit of a stretch before we do the meditation, but that's normal after a few hours. Soften torpor. Okay, so what I'm going to suggest here is just some practical things for dealing with soften torpor. Number one is don't try to sit for too long. Right? And this happens to people, especially if you've been on like a long retreat or something like that. You've had good meditation on the retreat and you think, I can sit for an hour or something like that. And then you think you'll sit for an hour, but actually you sit for like 20 minutes and then you fall asleep and then the alarm goes. Right? So don't try to do too much. You're much better off to sit. Sorry about the mispronunciation there. To sit for a short period, not the other way around. Okay, to sit for a short period. And to get up, even do some walking meditation, maybe do some yoga or some Tai Chi or something, and then come and sit again. Right? So don't try to push it and sit for too long. If you find that you're falling asleep in meditation and your mind's getting dull and so on, open your eyes. Yeah? If it's still not enough, then stand up. Just stand up. Yeah? Very effective method. It's very hard to fall asleep when you're standing up. Right? It can be done, but it's hard to do. So you're feeling falling asleep, just stand up and you just wait. And these things have a rhythm to them. That tiredness will come, it will go away, and then you sit down again and you continue to meditate. Yeah? So rather than sitting there in the meditation and feeling like you're battling against us and all of these kinds of things, it's a bit of a waste of time, to be honest. So you're much better just meditate for a shorter period, keep your meditation focused, and make sure, see, the trick is that how long you sit doesn't really matter. What matters is that you train your mind to associate meditation with wakefulness. That's what matters. Then when you sit, then you remember, this meditation, my mind is awake, it's bright, it's clear. And then your mind will go deeper into meditation. So this is just a few details on sloth and torpor. So restlessness and remorse. Okay, so this comes back a bit to what I was talking about with the past and the future. Restlessness wants to go to the future. Remorse wants to dig up the past. And of course these things, one of the big fuels in meditation. Now, restlessness often is like worldly restlessness, like you can't wait to get up from meditation, go and do something or something like that. Or it can be just like an energy or something you feel in your body, like you feel, okay. It can also be like a spiritual restlessness, which comes when you're like, wanting to push, wanting to, when will I get into jhanas, when will I get enlightened, and so on. And then that comes from that sense of pushing as well. So all of those can come under what we consider to be restlessness. So restlessness is countered by peacefulness, by tranquility, countered by letting go, countered by contentment. Okay, and finally, doubt. So doubt as a mental quality has its place. Of course, it is reasonable to doubt about things when you don't know about them, and that's perfectly fine. And the antidote to doubt, interestingly enough, in the suttas, sometimes the antidote to doubt can be said to be faith, which is what you'd expect, but also the antidote to doubt is inquiry. Interesting, right? It's not kind of what you'd expect. So the Buddha said the antidote to doubt is inquiry. So to go find somebody, ask a question, and hear some words of wisdom that can inform you and help you to understand. So there is a place for doubt, and it's perfectly fine and natural. Actually, it's really important. But that place is not in your meditation. That's the point here, right? If you're meditating and then you're thinking, should I do this meditation or that meditation? Then this is doubt. Yeah? If you're thinking, this person said they did with that teacher and then they got really fast results, maybe I should do that, and this is doubt. Or if you're thinking, maybe I'm too tired to meditate, I should get up and maybe I'll do something else. Maybe meditation's too hard. Right? So all of these are varieties of doubt. These can help to undermine your meditation. So to recognize these, to have some clarity, and to keep on going. So I'm not going to talk about these 5 hindrances in too much detail. But abandoning these 5 hindrances then leads us on to the last factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is right samadhi, which is the 4 jhanas. And so just remind me, of these 4 jhanas, how many are there? Okay, very good, thank you. Just checking that you're staying awake, okay? Alright, so 4. And then there's 4 formless jhanas or formless attainments, right? And then there's the neither perception or non-perception. So that's then there's the cessation of perception and feeling. So it's like 9. So and then you can split the first jhana into 2. So then that makes 10. So it gets very complicated. So I'm not going to talk about all of those different details. So I just want to talk very simply about the experience of jhana or the experience of samadhi. Now we know that the Buddha, and not just the Buddha, but many of the great sages in the olden times would leave behind everything that they had to go off into the forest and meditate and to realize these states. Yeah? And I always remember the statement that was made by one scholar who said that he said that with the pace of transport and communications in modern life make it very difficult to experience those same states of mind that the sages of ancient India experienced. Right? So that seems a reasonable thing to say. So that was said by Max Muller in the 1880s. Okay? The fast pace of life in the 1880s. I mean, you could send a telegram. You could catch a train and be on the other side of the country in like a day. It's crazy. Okay. So, first thing I'd say about jhanas is just be realistic. Okay? Just be realistic about it. Right? Jhanas are the outcome of the Noble Eightfold Path. They come by letting go of the hindrances. If you let go of the hindrances, you go into jhanas. Simple as that. Every single person here can do that. There's no reason why you can't. At the same time, jhanas are very subtle. If it was easy to do it while doing a busy job and all of those things, then why would all of those people have left behind everything to go off into the forest and meditate for decades at a time, right? I mean, they must have been pretty slow. Yeah? So just be reasonable about it. We're talking about very advanced and very subtle states of mind. Yeah? Now, whether I personally have confidence that you all can realize these things. Whether you will or not is another matter. Who can say? The mind is a strange place. Sometimes people go into states when they had no idea what they were doing. I'll just tell you a story from my time in Ipoh. One of the fellows who was helping look after the temple there, his name's Chong. And he was a taxi driver. And, nice guy, lots of faith. And, always calm and help out, work in the temple and these kinds of things. And then he would just drive his taxi around. His taxi was like the most beat-up, rubbish piece of taxi that you've ever seen in your life. He came to the monastery one day and said, he's just been to renew his license. I said, seriously? You managed to renew your license in that thing? And he said, Bhante, if I went to the car lot and got a brand new Mercedes and went in to register that as a taxi, then I couldn't renew it. But as long as you have a bit of, pay the right people, then you can renew anything. So, he said he told me a story once, when he first became interested in Buddhism. And he wanted to, he heard about this, meditation, and he really wanted to practice it, but he didn't really know what he was doing. He didn't know any teachers. And so he, went round to, some different temples and so on to try to find somebody who he could talk to about meditation, but he couldn't find anyone to talk to about meditation. And he said that, finally he just got frustrated. He said, look, there's no point in doing this. I just have to do it. I just have to see what I can do. And so he was in this Chinese temple, and he said, that place, he said, Bhante, he said, it was really loud, they were doing building in the next lot, and there was mosquitoes everywhere, and it was really hot, and he's just sitting there on the tile floor, there's noisy mosquitoes, and then he said with so much excitement in his voice, he said, I went inside. I went inside. He said, all this, no, all gone. Inside, I went inside. And all these years later, he could remember that experience so vividly. Somehow, he had found that key to letting go. Yeah? That's all it is. Remember, all of these things are right there. All of these jhanas, samadhi, all of these things, they're not just exotic things talking about in the ancient texts. They are right there, just on the other side of that veil of the 5 hindrances. And all you have to do is let go. And that's what they are. Yeah? So don't worry about these things. Don't some people like to kind of theorize about different kinds of jhanas, and there's very easy jhanas, and then there's the hard ones, and there's those ones, and there's these ones, and then there's oh my goodness, and then there's then there's these ones are this hard to do, and then you have to do it like this and like this. Don't worry about any of those things. None of those things matter. What matters is that every time you practice the Eightfold Path, is you're leading your mind closer. That's it. That's all that matters. The benefits of the path don't wait until the end, thankfully. Right? You see the benefits every time you do something. If you say a kind word to somebody, they'll smile at you. And you see, oh, that's the benefit. That's why it's good to be nice. Yeah? Every small thing that we do, we can see the benefit of that, and that is helping to lead us towards the path. And that path, the end of that path, is the mind of letting go, which brings us into samadhi. That's it. Okay? When it happens for you, it will happen. But it's not going to happen because of you theorizing about it or all of these kinds of things. It's good to have enough knowledge, right, to know what it is that you're doing and to guide yourself on the path and so on, right? So it's good to have some knowledge, but don't be one of those people who just sort of knows everything about these things but has never actually experienced any of them, right? So just keep practicing, just keep letting go, and these different factors of the path will reveal themselves to you. So we're going to do some more meditation in a minute. But I just want you to before we do that, just please stand up and just stretch your legs and give yourself a stretch or a wriggle or something like that. Okay, so now we're going to do some meditation. Would you like to do another guided meditation, or do you want to do a silent meditation? Guided? Silent. Looks like the guided meditation wins. Okay. So what I hear you telling me is you're saying that you've got no idea what you're doing unless you have a voice inside your head telling you what to do at every moment. Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, we'll do have a guided meditation, that's fine. For what it's worth, let me say that I think it's fine to do like a guided meditation for some groups and things like this, but I would not recommend getting in the habit of using guided meditation all the time. Like if you use an app or something like that to get you started, okay, but you're going to have to learn to walk by yourself. Yeah, so don't get dependent on the apps. Okay, let's get going. So sitting quietly and just taking a few minutes to settle into your body, settle into your posture. And just feeling easeful. So you can let go of the past, let go of the future. Just put down those burdens. It's so beautiful to be present. Now bringing awareness to the gentle feeling of the breath as it comes in and the breath as it goes out. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing 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 out. Noticing how the breath has this calming quality to it, soothing, gentling, with every breath taking away your sorrows, taking away your stresses, taking away your anxieties, leaving you content and peaceful and pure. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out, mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. Just feel that tension in your belly going away, the tension in your shoulders going away, tension in your eyes going away. Your breath is just taking care of you. The breath doesn't worry about what you've done wrong or what you haven't done. It doesn't worry about your regrets. It just wants to take care of you. May you be happy, bringing that sense of peace and love with every breath. as you continue to let the breath calm you down, notice how the breath is becoming more continuous, a smooth stream. Sometimes the mind is taken away, but that smooth, silky feeling of the breath is always there to calm you down, always there to soothe you. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out, mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. feeling of the breath becomes very, very soft, very silky. You notice that inside that breath is a feeling of pleasure, soft feeling of happiness, warmth, joy. It's strange and inexplicable. Why is it that your breath can feel so sweet, can bring you so much pleasure? And when you feel that pleasant feeling, you can feel it spread out through your whole body, like a warm wave, moving, rippling. near to the end of the meditation. Bring awareness back into your senses, back into your ears, hearing the sounds around you, into your skin, feeling the touch of cloth. And as you give your mind a minute or two to adjust, then throw it back to the start of the meditation. Ask yourself, what was my mind like then? What was I thinking about? How did I feel? What was my mood at that time? And then what happened during the meditation? What things helped me? What things were distracting? And finally, how does your mind feel like now compared to how it was at the start of the meditation? And we can dedicate the merit of our practice. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings realize Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So what's this? Well, I've never seen this before. What's this? It's a QR code for doing a question. So it's just a link and then you can put your questions in online. Is that right? Ah, fancy. There's another way that you can do it where you have a voice and you expel. Just seems like it works fine most of the time. But anyway, sure. That must be good. So I guess. Oh no, we're not streaming, are we? We're not streaming this. Okay, fair enough. Good. Don't like streaming things. Ever since I was a kid, I was always into science fiction. I was always into the future and technology and everything like that. And as I get older, I'm just like, I just hate technology. All of it's so annoying. So frustrating. All of those things that they promised us would happen, they all came, and they're all bad.
Okay, hope everyone can see the code. Some questions have already come in.
Good. So we've got How do I get the questions? Oh, they're on there, are they?
I can read for you, Ajahn.
Can I get them on this computer? Can I do it that way? Or is that going to be... Will that work? I don't have to keep turning around. If it's going to take too long, then don't worry about it. It's all right. You have to sign in for your email, then you have to go to your email, and then you have to do two-factor authentication. Then you have to get your phone and get it. Okay? Good enough. Thank you so very much. Choose or ignore. Can I? Thank you. Fancy. Oh, okay. So I don't know which ones. I don't think I'm seeing necessarily exactly the same ones that you're on there. So we just go to the top of it. Hopefully it's in the same order. So the first question we have here: how do we know if we are progressing correctly on the path? How do we know? Does anybody know the answer? Anyone? How do you know? Some people shaking their heads. No? Yes? More happiness and less suffering, okay. Less greed, hate and delusion is always a good one, right? But of course these things are impermanent, right? They come up and down. Sometimes you might be practicing for a long time, but still you get into some situation or whatever, and then you can still get angry about it or whatever. So that can still happen. But generally speaking, you find that your mind is decreasing in unwholesome dhammas and increasing in wholesome dhammas. That's really the way that you know if you're progressing on the path. Those differences don't necessarily make themselves clear day by day, but they can make themselves clear over a long time. Sometimes also it's useful to get feedback from others, because sometimes other people can see things about your behaviour and your demeanour that you might not be able to see yourself, or you might not be able to notice yourself. I had a friend who once was at a particular monastery, and at that monastery there's a lot of monks there, and he said that at the monastery, he said it was funny, because a lot of monks were all saying that they'd got into all of these jhanas and got into these states of meditation and things like that. He said, but they're all like exactly the same. None of them actually ever changed. They just got into these super states of meditation. He's saying, well, how does that work? I'm not convinced that it does. So don't give too much worry about these kinds of things. I'm going to get into this state or that state, or attain this or attain that, and those kinds of things. Look at your character. Look at how you are. Look at how you are with people. Ask yourself, was that a generous way to be with those people? Was that a kind-spirited way to be with those people? And so as long as you're doing those things, then you're doing all right. All right. Is it possible to have guardian spirits watching over you? Are those guardian spirits in the room with us right now? Yes? Okay, well that's okay. If people seem confident about that, that seems to be straightforward. Possible to have guardian spirits. Is it possible for you to watch over other spirits? Maybe you could be the guardian. Right? Why is it that you want guardian spirits watching over you? What exactly are they protecting you against? Curses? You have like a bomo who's making spells? No? My mum was living in Ipoh, and she had one of the first court cases dealing with black magic in the courts in Ipoh. Yes, very true. They had a bomo who was they woke up one morning, there were broken eggshells around the house. And when they said, oh no, eggshells, everyone was like, oh, that's terrible, eggshells. And basically what happened was that my mum had a maid who was working. This young girl, and she was working in the house. And then there was a driver and guard who was working outside the house. And this driver had his reputation of being a bomo, and he basically terrified the poor girl who was the maid so much that she gave him the keys to the house, and then he came in and stole the jewellery and then ran off with it. And then they found the jewellery in his house, and he's like, no, I didn't put it there. So they ended up in court. So look, guardian spirits and all of these kinds of things, honestly, I wouldn't worry about it too much, okay? Look after your own practice. The spirits will look after you. The suttas always say that all the devas will love somebody who's practicing the Eightfold Path. And if you have a wholesome mind and a wholesome heart, then all the good beings out there will look after you. And the bad beings, wouldn't worry about them too much. Okay. May I know whether starting a family, will starting a family slow down your progress in the path? Oh, interesting. Well, number one, probably good to have a conversation with your partner about that rather than a conversation with a monk, because what will I know about starting a family? I mean, can it? Look, obviously, bye-bye sleep, bye-bye relaxation and all of those things that you're going to be looking forward to. It's hard work, right? Personally, shout out to all the mums who are here. For all the mums, yay, congratulations. Amazing thing that you've done, yeah? Having kids, bringing them up, and also not forgetting all the dads as well, but especially all the mums. They're looking after kids. And look, I'm not seeing a lot of kids here today, so I'm guessing if there's any mothers here, you've just abandoned your children while you're coming here or something like that. I don't know if that's the case. But to be honest, what I think we can do, and I'm just going to throw this out as a suggestion for the BF. I don't know if this is something that you've talked about. Near where I live in Harris Park, there's a big Hindu temple. And when we went there to visit there one day, they've got a big kind of main hall. And that particular temple, they do a lot of community work and so on. And so they have a big hall with maybe capacity for a couple of hundred people. And at the back of the hall, there's this glassed-in room. It looks like it's like a studio or something like that. And at first I thought that must be like a recording studio for recording the talks or something, but then no, there's no anything there. And I asked the people, what's that? And they said, that's for all the mums. And so mums, if they've got babies, then they can come along and the babies can be crying or something like that. It's not going to be interrupting everybody, and they can still come and they can still join and be part of the community. I thought that was a really lovely thing. Yeah, what a nice thing to think about. Yeah. Now, obviously, that exact solution is not going to apply in every place, but I still think it's really important that we think about mums and think about parents and families and make sure that our Dhamma practice and the services that we provide for people is going to accommodate. Maybe we can provide childcare, right, so that parents can come along, join in Dhamma events and leave their kids to be looked after, right? That would be great, wouldn't it? Yeah? And childcare facilities. Or who knows what it might be. So I think this is something we really should be thinking about. A few years ago, I was at a conference in Jakarta, and that was organised by the Bodhinyana group. I think it was organised by the Bodhinyana group in Jakarta. Yeah. And one of the speakers at that conference was this woman who'd done her PhD or whatever it was, and she asked a very simple question. Who do people learn the Dhamma from? Right? Now, if you ask a monk that, then they'll say, well, people learn the Dhamma from the monks. Sometimes, sure, yeah. But what they found was that overwhelmingly, most people learned the Dhamma from their mothers. Yeah, that's where people learn. Yeah? And this is, I think, a really kind of unacknowledged fact in the Buddhist community. Yeah? People learn, the first Dhamma teacher for most people is their mums. Yeah? So maybe we should be giving some support. Yeah? Yeah, if for those who want to have a family or don't want to have a family, that's your decision. But we as a Buddhist community can be offering whatever help that we can to try to help you and support you in your Dhamma practice. So that's what I would like to just sort of throw that out there and just something to think about as a community. Okay, next one. Do monks have insurance? Interesting little question. If you're in America, definitely, right? So it actually is a major cost. Like, you think about it, you're running a monastery, there's like 10 bhikkhus or 10 bhikkhunis there, you've got to have health insurance for all of them. It's expensive, yeah? So leaving the United States aside, if we consider civilized countries, then they will, most places have public health. And certainly like Australia, we have a Medicare system and so on. So monks don't usually have insurance in those cases. They might do, you might have like building insurance and so on for the monasteries. Sometimes that's mandatory. In traditional Buddhist countries, usually people will look after you in the health centres and hospitals and things like that. And that's certainly been the case for me. And I should say not just in Thailand and Sri Lanka, but also in Malaysia. When I lived in Malaysia for like a year and a half, and a few times when I got sick or something like that, I went to see the doctor, and the doctors would always treat me for free. Didn't matter whether they're Buddhists or not. We went to the hospital one time. It wasn't even a question. No, we'll give you this for free. And so that was something that personally I've always encountered, that people have always been really, really willing to help. Now, obviously, you can't rely on that all the time, but in my experience, then that's been how things have worked. Okay. What exactly is enlightenment? Is it total disintegration? Okay, so we've gone from a nice, simple, practical question to one that is not. Okay, so first of all, this is something incidentally we've been discussing on our forum in some detail, the sort of central forum. So if you're interested to look at some more sort of scriptural discussions and so on that, you can check out some of the recent discussions on the forum. So first of all, let's begin by sort of breaking down a few key ideas. Okay, first of all, enlightenment, bodhi. This usually refers to that time during a person's life when they realize the truth to the fullest extent and let go of all of their attachments and defilements. Right? So this is an event that happens in a person's life. That means that at that moment that you can put a timestamp on it. Right? Actually, in the Vinaya, that's what it does. If one of the ways that you can test whether somebody's enlightenment experience is genuine is that you ask them, when did that happen? Where did that happen? And if they can't give you a clear answer about it, then it's not the real thing. Right? So enlightenment is an experience, and it's that experience of the letting go of greed, hate and delusion. Right? Now we're talking about full enlightenment, talking about arahantship. So obviously there are 4 stages of enlightenment on the way, but we're talking now about arahantship. So the full ending of greed, hate and delusion. So that sometimes is called kilesa parinibbana, the complete ending or complete extinction of the defilements. All right. So is that total disintegration? No, it's the ending of the defilements, but you still stay. Right? There's still a person, there's still a body walking around, they still have a mind, and arahants are pretty much like you and me, just not the bad bits. That's all. Just, thoughts are still thoughts, memories are still memories, intentions are still intentions. The way your mind and body work is pretty much the same, but you just don't have greed, hate and delusion. That's all. That's the main point there. So we can get into a lot of details around these things, of course, but just that's the basic idea. So that's what they call kilesa parinibbana. Yes, Mr. Fitch, is that right? Sorry. After death. I'm coming to that right now. Is this your question? Yeah, excellent. Well done. Okay. So then after death is the next one, is the khandha parinibbana. Okay. So usually we wouldn't call that enlightenment. Right? The enlightenment of the bodhi is the arahantship during the person's life. So which is the kilesa parinibbana, the full extinction of defilements. The khandha parinibbana, the full extinction of the aggregates, is what happens when an arahant dies. And so the Buddha compared this to a flame going out. When you blow a flame out, where does it go? Cannot say. Yeah? All we can say is that it goes out. So the word parinibbana means extinguishment, means it going out, and after that there's no form, no feeling, no perception, no choices, and no consciousness. Simple. Everything is gone. Everything that you've known, everything that you've experienced, everything that's been part of your world, all of that is the world of conditions. And all of those conditions come to an end. Does that sound scary? Some people it's scary, some people it's yes. That sounds great. Yeah? Here's the thing. It should be scary. Yeah? We're talking about the most radical transformation that's possible to have. It should be like, whoa, what's this? What's going on about it? Yeah? And when you consider it, it's such an incredible idea that it's impossible to wrap your mind around it. But what we do is, as we practice, we learn that letting go a bit leads to happiness, leads to freedom. Letting go a bit of defilements. Every time we let go of defilements, we are telling ourselves that, oh yeah, letting go that I felt anger. And it felt bad. And then I let go of that anger and I felt peaceful. That's what Nibbana is. That's all that it is. It's that same thing, just carried to the nth degree. So, Khandha Parinibbana, everything goes out. Okay. So somebody says, I have a health condition. I am sorry to hear that. Most of us do have I have a health condition. Also, it's called life. Unfortunately, I have a terminal diagnosis, so really just a matter of time. Man, I don't know if you heard the one about the man who went into the doctor, and the doctor said, "Look, I'm really sorry to have to tell you. I'm sorry to tell you that your results came back. It's not looking good." He said, "You've only got 30 days to live." And the man said, "Doctor, that's terrible." He said, "I'll never be able to pay your bill in 30 days." The doctor looked at his charts again. He said, "Okay, I'll give you 60." Okay. How can one deal with fear of not being taken care of when one is older, right? Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. Yeah, and we have like in traditional societies where you have extended families, and the elderly would live with the family, be looked after by the family. And now we've mostly decided to break that up, and we've decided that we want to live by ourselves or just with a nuclear family. And we tend to abandon our elders. Yeah, this is the case with myself. My father's in a nursing home. I went to see him a couple of weeks ago up in Coffs Harbour. My mum still is okay. She lives by herself, but she still can get around. She's healthy, but she's getting old, and that won't last forever. So it's a difficult problem, and especially if you have a bad health condition, not something to look forward to. The only thing that I would say there is, again, I think this is something that we can look into as a Buddhist community. I don't know what the situation here is in Singapore, but in Sydney we have a number of people who've been talking about setting up maybe a Buddhist nursing home or some kind of retirement community or something like that. And that's, I think, something that could be done that would mean that, in those days then you can be looked after and you can be surrounded by people who share those similar values and can still support each other and so on. So, look, I'm not saying that that's for everyone, and I'm not saying that's the only solution, but I think it's something to think about. Do they have anything like that in Singapore? No? Is it like a Buddhist nursing home?
No. Yeah, but it's assisted living is
living.
open to every race, religion, or.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so there's something. So yeah, it's going to come for us all. Wow. What about robots, though? Right? Because this is what they say, right? There's fewer and fewer carers and people looking after it. And again, I don't know what the situation is in Singapore, but in Australia there's a huge employment gap, and the need for nurses and carers is so great. We don't have enough people. And so we're going to use robots to do it instead. What do you think? Not good? Look, well, you can't imagine, yeah? I also can't imagine. But I was actually at a conference. One of my good friends, Amit Herat, in Canberra, is a robot engineer and a professor of robotics. He just wrote a textbook on it. And I sort of gave a talk at the introduction to his textbook. And they had a number of people who were experts in robotics, and they were talking about this. And one of the ladies who did that said her response was, you can take my robot carer from my dead hands. I'm going to have a robot carer, and I don't care what you want. Why? Because it's embarrassing and humiliating to have nurses having to take you to the toilet all the time. I mean, this is what my dad is like right now. He has Parkinson's. He can't stand up. They have to get a machine. They have to lift him up on the machine. He wants to go to the toilet every time. I mean, it's humiliating. Nobody likes that. You know, I mean, the nurses don't mind. It's their job, right? But for people's dignity, maybe having a robot do that is going to be better.